What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Powerhouse Mentality Podcast. I'm your host. I'm Caitlin Kenneth Smith, and today I have an incredibly special guest. His name is Jamie Selzler. He's lost over 300 pounds, 340 pounds to be exact, and completely transformed his life from the inside out. Not just his body, not just his health, but also his mind. And he was recently on an episode of Mind Pump, which I listen to every single day. And when I heard his episode, I reached out to him and started the conversation because he needed to know how much of an impact that episode had on me and how much I knew that his story needed to be shared with more people, which is exactly why I have him on today. So sit back, relax, and enjoy Jamie's story because it will be one that you will not forget. And make sure to share this episode because we need to get this message out there. Enjoy. Jamie, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm really good. I'm really excited to be here. I've really enjoyed listening in and checking out your YouTube channel. And so thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
For sure. Well, let's start by telling the listeners why you're here in the first place. So, recently you were on an episode of Mind Pump. In fact, you were the first time they've ever had a listener actually just come onto the show, which it must have been an incredible experience for you. We were just talking about that, right?
Yeah, no, it was. How I kind of got on their radar is I emailed a question a few months back. I've lost a lot of weight, which we'll talk a bit about. I mean, I've lost
Mm-hmm.
340 pounds now, so I have a lot of extra skin. Like you have loose skin after you lose a lot of weight.
Yeah.
And it's affecting my ability to do some lifts and walking. So I just emailed in because these guys are trainers. I'm like, hey, you've had other clients. What do they do about all the loose skin? And next thing you know, they invite me to go down there, and then they flew me to their studio in California, and it's like a full production studio, and they have 20 people who work there. And I tell you this, they could not have been nicer. After, I mean, we've filmed for about 90 minutes. What they put in the podcast was everything. They didn't cut anything out. And afterwards, we just sat there for another hour, just the four of us talking for an hour after the podcast ended. They were just like the coolest guys, and everyone who works there is just the nicest people.
Yeah. I mean, I remember because I listen to every single episode of Mind Pump and I've been listening for like 3, 4 years now. And I remember when you were actually on the episode and I remember listening to your question and just the way like you were speaking and articulating and everything. I was like, oh, this guy knows what he's saying. Like he knows what he's talking about. And then they invited you to be on. And I was like, oh, that'll be a cool episode. And then when it came out, I was like, wow, this is a really good episode, which is what prompted me to reach out to you, not just because of your journey and your story, but also, like I said, the way you communicated things and the confidence that you had, and just everything that you said, like down to like all of the rules that you had for yourself, which we'll get into.
Yeah.
But like you lost 340 pounds now, right?
340 pounds. My heaviest weight was 652. That's the heaviest recorded. I think I was probably a little heavier, but when I got that high, I got scared to weigh myself because you know how it is. I think some people have out of sight, out of mind. And
Yeah.
but yeah, so yeah, it was got to 650, unfortunately. And yeah, I've lost 340 now, and I feel like a different human being.
I couldn't even imagine how, like, you're literally half of who you were.
I'm half of who I was, and I'll probably lose another 40 pounds or something. But I don't ever want to be small. Like I like being a big dude, and I've really liked, I do. We'll talk about all the stuff I do, but I do a ton of resistance training, and I want to continue being sort of a bigger guy. But yeah, no, it's literally half of myself. I recently crossed that 50% threshold, which is amazing because at first I thought if I just like got to 400 pounds, that would have been like winning the lottery for me. So the fact I've surpassed it and continued to go down and added muscle, doing DEXA scans, finding I'm still adding muscle at this point, even though I'm at a significant deficit, is I don't know, it just shows how lucky I am for sure.
That's incredible. And it really, I think it has a lot to do with the fact that you've been strength training throughout that entire time, correct?
Yeah, I have, and that's why I encourage people to really include strength training as a core fundamental part of what they do. I mean, cardio's fine. I don't really do cardio, but I'm happy for all of my cardio people. I should say I walk 12 to 15,000 steps a day. So
Yeah.
I don't consider that cardio, but so I'm still actually moving. But I think that the strength training, I use GLP-1 medication. That's allowed me
Mhm.
to silence the food noise.
Yeah.
And with that space, I've filled it with just lifting weights rather than lifting a fork, and it's totally changed my life.
That's actually huge. And I like that you spoke about that because I feel like so many people, especially coaches and trainers who are in my space, because I know a lot of people, I'll go through Instagram and it's like people think, oh, GLP-1s were cheating. This is terrible. Like, and it's just they don't have the education behind it and they don't know the impact that it could have. Because I've had several clients who have been on it, and for them to go from like literally every single moment of every day thinking about food
Yeah.
to like nothing, that must have been crazy for you to experience.
It absolutely was. And for those who don't experience it, it's really hard to describe. But the way
Hmm.
that I kind of describe it is like if I'm an addict for anything, it's ice cream. I love ice cream. So if I have ice cream in the freezer, it does not matter if I'm in the middle of eating dinner or if I'm full or I'm thinking about the fact that I have the ice cream in there, and I won't stop thinking about this is pre-GLP. I won't stop thinking about it until I even go have a little taste of it.
Hmm.
And like any drug, in my case, a little taste was never enough.
Yep.
And having that constant th thinking of food, and I'm not unique in this, this is almost everyone who uses medications experiences this.
Hmm.
All of a sudden, people think it's just suppress your appetite, you never eat. Like, no, that's not really the case. It just stops you from thinking about food all the time. And it's hard to describe to someone who doesn't know what it's like. The analogy that I use that I've used a few times, I'll use for your audience that hasn't heard it is if you are at the if you're a parent and you bring a kid to a grocery store, or if you're shopping and you see a parent with a kid there, and the kid's throwing a tantrum because they see a candy bar and they want it, and the parent says, no, dinner's in an hour, you can't have the candy bar. The kid will throw a tantrum and start screaming and crying and hitting the floor and won't stop. And that's what food noise is. Food noise is the kid with that tantrum. And
Yes.
at some point, you as a parent give in because you can't do anything else until you get the kid to stop.
Hmm.
And so even though it's the wrong thing to do, you give the kid a candy bar or half a candy bar or whatever. And that's how you also silence food noise if you're experiencing it, which is you eat something and it is silenced for a little bit. But
Hmm.
then like the kid with the tantrum, you're just sort of feeding the mentality. And in my case, using these medications just took that kid and like doesn't have tantrums anymore. And it's completely changed my life. My life is different in every way than it was 3 years ago. And
Yeah.
it's not just the medication, but it's the medication that sort of opened the door for me to make all the other changes.
I think that's what a lot of people miss. They think that like if I take this medication, it's going to fix everything, when in all reality, it's not going to fix everything unless you actually take action with it. Like what you did, you didn't just take the medication and then just continue doing what you were doing.
Yeah.
You took the medication and used that as, okay, the food noise is silent, so let me start taking action to clean up my nutrition, start strength training and doing the things that are going to move the needle and change your habits.
Yeah. Where I really worry about this class of medication is for people who are using it just to not eat.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't want to cause any triggers for anyone that have EDs, but that's what these medications they can cause you to just not have any hunger,
Yep.
and which is long-term dangerous for many reasons, but particularly if you're losing a lot of muscle throughout that process.
Yeah, one rule that I have for my clients, I guess, too, is if they are on a GLP-1 or if they're going to take something like that, one, they need to prioritize protein and they need to prioritize strength training because if you don't do those two things, it's going to be it could be detrimental depending on the individual.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reality is like in the short term, doing
Hmm.
strength training, eating your protein causes you to not lose weight as quickly as you would otherwise.
Yep.
There were many points of this process where I was aware that I could have lost more weight than I actually had I not been doing those things.
Hmm.
But part of it is people get so focused on a number on the scale, which we can talk about when we get to talking about goals. But I really caution people when they begin using these is be careful of what your goals are, because I think many people have a goal weight in mind, and that's often associated with the time in their life in the past
Yep.
where they were happy when they were a certain weight, they were happy at that weight. And because that was maybe when they were in high school or that was their wedding weight or whatever, and they want to get back to that because they remember being happy then. So they think if I get to that number on the scale, I will once again be happy.
Hmm.
And the reality is, happiness does not come from a number on a scale. So
Right.
if that's what you're chasing throughout this process on GLP or anything else, you're setting yourself up for failure and sadness and disappointment during that process. So those who are using these medications have to do strength training, have to get their protein in, because not doing that may give you decent scale numbers in the short term.
Hmm.
But in my case, my daily calories burned are higher now than they've ever been. I'm losing more weight per week now than I was ever
I
because
bet.
I have so much muscle now
Hmm.
that my body is just a furnace for calories that would not be like that had I lost muscle throughout this process.
Yeah, and people when they start any sort of a fitness journey, a lot of people immediately gravitate towards like, oh, I'll go on a run or I'll go bike and I'll do some cardio because that burns the most calories right now. And they don't think that like, oh, well, I can teach my body how to burn more calories simply by building muscle.
Yeah, absolutely. And folks who that's why I joke about not doing cardio, but cardio is fine as long as you're doing it along with strength training.
Right.
I think people I was actually I did a lift today. Today was a lower body day and was
Nice.
talking with my trainer about this specific issue because we both have to drive by another gym on the way to the gym we work out at. And there's a bunch of windows, and you can see in there a bunch of people, particularly middle-aged women, just like going totally crazy, going totally
Hmm.
apeshit on the elliptical machines. And I know what's happening is they're on these machines and they're seeing like a calorie burned number. So they feel like they are really doing something. And when in reality, one, you can't trust the numbers on those machines.
Hmm.
But two, so you're certainly burning some calories and you're burning fat while you're on them, but just for the time that you're on them.
Yep.
And for most people, if you say, would you rather be having an increased calorie or fat burn 24 hours a day versus 1 hour a day? They're going to take 24 hours a day, but they just don't understand how to do it, which is why coaches like you are important, why podcasts like yours and others are important.
Hmm.
Because hopefully they will connect with people in ways that other things have not.
Yeah, and that's always my hope with everything that I do with the podcast, which again is why I'm having you here because like for you to say like, oh, I lost 340 pounds by not doing any sort of intentional cardio other than like just movement through steps is awesome. So, how did it all start, right?
So I've always been really big, going back to when I was 9 or 10 years old. In high school, I was generally probably about 350-ish. Went off to college, certainly got to 400, 450 when I started drinking with friends and going out to eat a bunch. It was every night was like go out to the bars and then like Taco Bell on the way home. And
Yep, that was literally my brother to a
yeah,
T.
you can sort of get away with that when you're 21 or 22.
Hmm.
If I did that now, I would be 800 pounds, I'm sure, if I did that today.
You probably wouldn't be able to get out of bed in the
No,
morning.
I wouldn't. Yeah. And then was got to 500 plus when I was 24 or so. And I stayed that big the whole time. And I worked a lot. I was moving a lot. And I was always kind of gaining a little bit of weight each year.
Hmm.
I'd really lost weight twice in like, I've tried to lose weight hundreds and hundreds of times, but there were twice where I was actually somewhat successful at it. One was the early 2000s. I did something called the Atkins diet,
Oh
which
yeah.
was essentially a keto carnivore type of thing.
Hmm.
Was not sustainable for me because I love my rice too much to give it up.
Carbs are
Ever.
tasty.
Yeah, exactly. Carbs are great. And ended up hurting myself in the gym. I was lifting at the time, and once I couldn't lift for a while because my back was hurt, I just stopped eating well, and then I gained all the weight back. And
Hmm.
then later on 2015, I did a diet through my doctor and through the hospital, which essentially was using meal replacement shakes and bars and lean cuisines.
Oh dear.
And what's crazy, this was all with like a dietitian and a doctor. And I lost
Yeah.
75 or 100 pounds in a few months, which was, I mean, I felt like shit the whole time because I was exhausted from the calorie deficit, but
Hmm.
I wasn't doing any sort of physical activity whatsoever. And I lost weight, but then I moved for work. I worked for Amazon for many years. So I moved to Seattle to our headquarters and I gained all the weight back like in a couple of months because um, I have I have too much of an ego to fail on that program because I have to show up every week and get weighed in front of a bunch of people.
Yep.
So I could not show up and gain weight on that
Hmm.
every week. So then I gained it back. And then during COVID, I just gained a significant amount. That's where I got to 650 plus was during COVID. I was working 8 hours a week. I was I'm not kidding, I was getting 300 to 500 steps a day.
Jeez.
And it was just a difficult time for everyone, but
Oh
certainly
yeah.
it was. Um, and I got to the point where I had to leave that employment because I was just killing myself. Like it
I'm
was
sure you were working for Amazon during COVID.
COVID, yeah. And It was like just a, I don't, I want to use my words carefully, but I'm a happy, optimistic person. It was an unintentional, slow motion suicide, is what it was,
Hmm.
using food as the weapon. And eventually moved back to where I'm from, North Dakota, because I knew I'd have a support system here. I realized I needed to have a support structure around me.
Hmm.
And it took a little time, but I eventually started working out. So 3 years ago, I really made an effort at this process. The first year did not have any medication. Um, I lost 50 pounds the first year, which is okay,
Yeah.
but I was 650. I mean, to be honest, if you're 650, you should be losing more than 50 in a year.
Right.
But I made the change really. I realized I had to make a change for a few reasons. The first and the biggest one was that, so I was 40, I'm 46 now, I was 43 at the time. And I looked around and I realized that no one my size was still alive in their 50s. Like they had all died. And it was eye-opening for me
Mhm.
because right around that time, a really good friend of mine, someone who's like a personal hero for me, he's in his 70s. I've known him forever. And he pulled me aside at one point and said, Jamie, we love you, he and his wife, we love you. I want you to go to my funeral. I don't want to go to yours. And when a man who's in his 70s says that he's probably going to go to your funeral, that was I'm appreciative of
Yeah.
that level of honesty. I get emotional even thinking about it. Uh, and so, in addition to that, my mobility got exceptionally bad. My lowest moment was getting stuck on a toilet. I couldn't get up, and eventually was able to do it. But it really made me think like not only am I going to die young, but the rest of my life, however long it is going to be terrible. It's going
Mm.
to be bedbound or unable to move. And I realized that if I did not start making a change and doing it right away, it was not going to be good for me or my family or anyone else around me. So that first year, I just started moving a little bit more. I started eating a little bit better. That's when I started developing some of my rules about promises. After that first year, I finally admitted that my many, many efforts and attempts and years of trying to lose weight were not going to work on my own, and I needed help. And I had never really considered bariatric surgery before because I always thought I can do this on my own.
Yeah.
Um, and I never had surgery, but instead I got a referral to a really great doctor who got me started on GLP-1s. That was 2 years ago. So in the last 2 years, I've lost 290 pounds in the last 2 years.
That's crazy.
The middle year, I lost 140. I've lost 150 in the last 12 months. So my weight loss has increased with time as I've lifted weights. Uh,
Huh.
and so I didn't just like, when I started lifting, I was 550 pounds when I started lifting. Lift 4 days a week. I've always been lifting 4 days a week. When I started walking, I was about 475 when I started really focusing on my steps. And even then, it was only at 3 or 4 thousand a day. Now I do a minimum of 12,000 a day. And I really learned throughout this process that you've, where I failed in the past is you try to do all the things at once.
Hmm.
And that's just a recipe for disaster.
Oh yeah. You just get overwhelmed.
You get totally overwhelmed, and it's easy if you start trying to do 10 new things or 10 new habits at a time, and you start failing on one, two, three of them, it's so much easier to become okay mentally with failure.
Hmm.
You begin to fail all the rest of them. But anyway, that's how I kind of got started and why I did it. And it's been the best decision I ever made was asking for help.
Yeah, I bet. As far as everything goes, I find that when a lot of people make these choices to like change what they've been doing, like you've tried to lose weight in the past, but you realize, okay, that wasn't working. Did you have like an enough is enough moment when you were like, I need to make a change now?
Um, it was certainly when I needed a walker to get around my apartment.
Hmm.
I needed a walker for all movement, but I had such an ego, and my ego ended up maybe saving me here. I did not want to be seen like that out in public or with friends or family. So I pretty much stopped going out or seeing people. And when I did, I would not use a walker. I would just sort of the amount of physical effort and mental fortitude it took for me just to leave my place and like go
Hmm.
somewhere to a restaurant or whatever, it took a lot. And so I knew that this was like not going to be a way of life forever. But two things happened that were sort of fortunate for me. One is I have a friend, really young friend, who was a senior in college. I volunteer at this youth leadership program, and this friend is also a volunteer in that program. And their housing situation fell through their last semester, and they were just going to go couch surfing on all their friends' place. And I had this guest room. I'm like, why don't you just come use my guest room for a few months so that way you don't have to worry about being homeless, basically. So when that happened, I realized that okay, I can't live like this. I'm going to have someone living with me now,
Yeah.
and at least for a few months. And so I can't be ordering DoorDash twice a day and walking around on a walker. And right around that same time, I ended up moving to a different place where and I park in a parking ramp now that's like exactly 500 steps from my apartment. So just a simple act of, okay, I can't order as much food because I'd be embarrassed for someone to see what I'm doing. And I have no choice but to walk steps, whereas before I had a garage right next to my place.
Hmm.
Those two things sort of like told me, all right, I don't want to be in public with a walker, and I can't now. My literal crutch that I was using at home, I can't use anymore because I don't want to be seen using it. Sort of forced me to get started. And that was the first year when I wasn't using medication.
Hmm.
And while I didn't losing 50 was great because I had been gaining every year until then. So losing anything was a success.
Yeah, that's progress for
It was
sure.
progress. It did teach me that I actually could do it.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe I needed some help along the way to solve this disease I have with this obesity, but the help made a huge difference for me.
Hmm. Yeah. So, how did you start strength training then? Because I know that so many people are afraid to even go into the gym, especially at that size, even though the gym is probably the place where you're going to get the least amount of judgment. I know because I worked in a gym for so long. And like whenever I would see somebody who was bigger come in, I'd want to make them feel as comfortable as possible so they know that, like, hey, this is your place. But I know that I've also signed up a lot of people. I remember this one guy specifically who walked in, he was like, I've tried to come into the gym like multiple times, but I just sit in the parking lot and leave. And then he came in that day. So what kind of sparked that for you?
So I was not uncomfortable in the gym climate or culture. I had like early 2000s, I joined a gym and had been working out when I was on Atkins. In 2012, 2013, I started working out with a trainer in Kentucky, Josh Bowen, who's amazing. Um, and so I was comfortable in gyms, but and I've never felt, I shouldn't say this, I even back then I would still occasionally feel judged in gyms because I had him, which was like a boutique private training gym, but
Right.
then I also joined like Planet Fitness, which I'm usually not a huge fan of, but it's a great entry point for people who want to start working out.
Yeah.
And I would still do that as well. And when you are significantly overweight, you are you are judged all the time. I joke that like I'm psychic because when I was 600 plus pounds and I would meet someone, I knew what they were thinking because it's a natural, normal reaction when you see someone that big to think in your head, holy shit, they're huge. Like
Hmm.
I totally get it. Um, so you are frequently judged. Throughout my life, I can't tell you how many times I would walk by people and they would nudge each other and point at me. Like, I get that for many people, I was maybe the one of the biggest people they'd ever seen.
Hmm.
And for anyone who's 400 plus pounds, they experience the same thing. And because you are judged all the time, you assume that when you go into a gym where the people who are in the best shape are, that they will be the most judgmental. And I am constantly now evangelizing to people that no, that is not true.
Hmm.
Not that there aren't some assholes in gyms, but
Yeah.
vast majority want to go and give you a high five, they're pumped for you. And in reality, they often aren't even noticing you because when most people in the gym, many are not in there to compare themselves to others. Um, they're only most people are comparing themselves to themselves and
Yeah.
are they lifting more? Are they getting higher reps, whatever? But in terms of getting started, I did some things at home. And so I've started doing this like I've never been a social media guy, but because of the whole mind pump thing, I've started posting on like Instagram and TikTok
Yeah,
more.
and I love seeing it. It's cool.
And so on TikTok, I'm doing body weight exercises from home.
Oh, nice.
I'm showing the things that I used to do at the start before I went into the gym. And basically, I have two rules for it, which is one, I don't do anything that involves getting on the ground. And two, I only do things that I would have been able to do at 600 plus pounds.
I love that.
It's because resistance training is important for everyone. It's
Hmm.
really important for people who are needing to lose a lot of weight.
Hmm.
The fear of the gym is a real thing. And there are two things that cause people to be scared of the gym at that size. One is just the emotional aspect of it, of feeling like I'm being judged and I don't know what I'm doing. And there's that. And then there's the physical aspect, which is it's really hard when you start. And my view is if I can help people start doing stuff from home, that will help on both fronts. One, they will begin to realize they can do some things.
Hmm.
And second, they'll get a little bit of, they'll get some reps in that will teach them the very fundamental basics. So when they do go to the gym, even if they don't hire a trainer, which I encourage everyone to do, even for a month,
Hmm.
when they do go to the gym, they'll feel better about it. Yeah, so I do these like body weight routines where I'm having, people do things like body weight squats or goblet squats using like a gallon of water or a laundry
Yeah.
um, doing, incline push-ups. I mean, all sorts of things you can do from home at a much higher body weight. So that's how I got started. And then eventually joined a gym. Again, this is one of these kind of more personal training gyms. I have 24/7 access, but there's not many people there. And I essentially started by just I interviewed the trainer.
I think that's so crucial. More people need to do that.
It is. I mean, everyone should do that because
Hmm.
a lot of gyms out there, they get you to sign up for a personal training contract before you really get to know someone.
Yeah.
So this guy's name is Peter. It's a Blueprint Training here in North Dakota. It's a fantastic gym. He's a really good trainer. I interviewed him. I felt comfortable with him, and then I said, let me just do a month with you before I sign any contract. And they were good about letting me do that. And so I did the month, and I'm like, all right, this works. When you're very obese, you need to make sure that your trainer doesn't cause harm or damage by pushing
Hmm.
you harder.
Yep.
And in my case, that involved my trainer often like having to slow me down because I was so big. My mentality is like I am so strong because we think if you're 600 pounds, you have a bunch of muscle.
Yeah.
And and sure, I probably did have a lot of muscle, but I didn't. But it hadn't been working. I hadn't even using it. And so he was able to train me in a way that caused me to not have injuries. And that convinced me that he was the right one for me. So I really am sort of encouraging people start if you can't just show up at a gym one day, if it's new for you, start doing some things at home just to show what you're doing. And that might involve body weight exercise. It might mean, like, adjustable dumbbells, which I have right
Yeah.
here. Um, it might mean grip thing, which I'm doing all the time while I'm
Hmm.
on calls. And then it can progress to the gym. And when it does progress to the gym, you know, make sure that the trainer's right for you. Make sure that the gym environment's comfortable for you. So that way you don't have to feel like you made a mistake and then you end up not going there again.
Yeah. The hardest part truly is starting for a lot of people. So I love that you're doing that to like get people started so that they can gain a little bit of momentum and have some wins under their belt.
Yeah.
So when it comes to things, I know one of the biggest things that I heard you talk about on Mind Pump was about the rules that you set for yourself. So I
Yeah.
definitely want to get into those. So how did you come up with these rules? Number one.
Uh, After I was about 6 months or a year into this process, so this would have been about 2.5 years ago, I just started to do these things. One, some of them were just on my own, like, hey, rule number one, keep promises to yourself. That was not something I'd heard anywhere. That was just an intentional thing where it's like, I gotta start doing this. And I just sort of clicked with me that I have a lifetime of breaking promises to myself. And
Most of us do.
we all do. If you're listening to this, I bet if you thought about it, you could list off 3 or 4 promises you've broken to yourself in the last week.
Yeah. And it could be super little things like, I'm going to fold the laundry today. And then you don't.
I'm going to go to bed at 10 o'clock tonight.
I do that one every night.
Yeah, exactly. And so you have to start making promises to yourself. And I realized I didn't start by intentionally saying I'm going to keep promises to myself.
Hmm.
I just noticed I had been keeping promises to myself. And that's when I became very intentional about it and said, okay, now I'm doing this on purpose. And we are very good at keeping promises to other people, coworkers, family, friends, people we love, we keep promises to. And I just had this realization that I love myself. I really do love myself. Hopefully, everyone does to some extent. And if you keep a promise to someone you love, that means you have to keep a promise to yourself too. That was a fundamental core change in my life was making a promise and keeping it to myself, which
Hmm.
means that I don't make promises to myself that I can't keep. Like when I was walking 2,000 steps a day, I didn't make a promise to myself I'm going to walk 10
Yep.
because it wouldn't have worked. I would have failed. And once you start breaking a promises, it's just so easy to break more of them.
It's a slippery slope once you start doing that.
Absolutely, 100%. So that was the first one. And then as I went on, I just sort of developed other rules for myself, listening to others, I love podcasts. So podcasts, or I read something, or just life experience. As a life experience, I've been a people manager for 25 years. I've managed thousands and thousands of people. And the sort of these rules that I developed for myself came from also leading people and
Hmm.
seeing what works as a leader if I'm leading someone else and what doesn't work and how do people self-motivate and all those things. And I just sort of developed these four rules that um, now that I'm talking about them, with you or with others, I'm realizing it is like a core structure for achieving a different and new mindset. I
It
did
really
not
is.
I did not realize that at the time as I've gone through. As I went through, these rules were just like things to keep me on track and
Hmm.
accountable. I did not realize I was creating a whole new mindset for myself that I could then maybe teach to others as well. I had no idea. I just
Yeah.
thought, oh yeah, this is what I have to do because I knew that this was the last time I was ever going to try to lose weight.
Hmm.
If this didn't work, I knew nothing would work. So,
Hmm.
so I had these rules, and they've been effective, incredibly
Yeah.
effective.
Rule number one, keep the promises that you make to yourself. That was my favorite one
Yeah,
because one of our core values at the Powerhouse mentality is keep the commitments you make to yourself. So it's kind of
yeah,
like line in line. For that same reason is like you keep commitments to everybody else, but you don't keep them to yourself. And it can make such a huge difference because I know for me, it made a huge difference in my life.
yeah.
So what's number two?
Number two is about motivation, and which is that having consistency and discipline is more important than motivation. Many people, when they are getting started on losing weight or whatever health thing they're working on, they often are relying on motivation. And I
Hmm.
sort of view motivation and inspiration as different things. I was inspired to lose weight because I did not want to die young. That was the
Yeah.
inspiration. I view motivation as like the day-to-day thing, like what gets me to go to the gym, what gets me to get my steps in or drink my water or eat healthy or whatever. And motivation is awesome. Motivation kicks ass. Motivation is fleeting.
Hmm.
Motivation goes away quickly. And so I realized that I I needed to be disciplined and be consistent regardless of motivation. And that's a really critical rule as well, because even now, even today, the hardest thing for me to do is sit in the car outside the gym and get myself to open the door to go in.
Yep.
I lift weights pretty heavy 4 days a week. And if I don't do it, if I miss a day for whatever reason, I feel like bad about it.
Hmm.
I still am not motivated to get in there until I actually walk in the door. Then I'm fine.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but if I counted on motivation, I'd be like just sitting on my couch all the time. I would be playing video games or watching Netflix. If I counted on motivation to eat better, I'd probably be eating pizza every night again of my life. But instead, I just practice discipline and consistency. So, I lift weights 4 days a week, and it's because Jamie lifts weights 4 days a week. I'm a guy that does that. So I have to do it. It's
Yeah, it's like you've changed your identity in a sense, right?
I really have. Um, and it's awesome, but I don't rely on motivation anymore to do it. And
Yeah, that's one of the biggest questions I get in on Instagram is how are you so motivated all the time? I'm not motivated like at all. Like the
yeah,
amount of times where I'm like warming up in my garage, like nearly crying because I'm so tired I don't want to be there, but I do it anyway because it's you know how much better you feel when you do it.
absolutely. I've never I've never regretted a workout ever,
Absolutely.
like not once.
You always feel so much better. And it's kind of like that thing of always keep moving, like you're stacking wins. And confidence is simply the memory of winning. And I think the more that we win and the more that we celebrate those wins, the more confident that we become in that we can actually do this. And you kind of alluded to that earlier.
Yeah. Yep, 100%, absolutely. Which honestly leads to like the third rule I have, which
Hmm.
is to celebrate every win.
Hmm.
And this one was one that I had to be very intentional about. I don't think I got this from anywhere. I think I got it just because I was really excited. It
Yeah.
was, I have one really close friend I mean, I have many close friends, but I have one in particular who he's younger than me, he's 30, and we've been sort of on this journey together. But the difference is he was fairly thin and wanted to get bigger, wanted to
Hmm.
grow and add muscle. Of course, I was trying to lose weight. And I think the amount I weighed was like equal to three of him, which is hilarious to think about. And so we were doing this together, and you know, it's funny. He eats more than me. He gets more protein than I do, but he's like half my size at this point. But anyway, I wanted to like I was just excited. So every time I did something, I wanted to tell him. He was the only friend I really talked to about this process. And then as I started talking to more people, I realized that every time I had a good moment, it didn't really matter what it was. I liked to talk about it. And I found that the more I spoke these wins out loud and celebrated them, uh, one, it adds some accountability, but two, it's like this self-fulfilling prophecy where you're just looking for wins all the time. So I
Hmm.
started writing them all down. So I have my notebook here that just has like pages and if you're not watching the camera, I'm showing you like pages and pages of wins here
That's
that
awesome.
I've gone back a couple of years to do. And they could be even tiny things
Hmm.
like one of the first ones is that I walked from my parking spot to my apartment and didn't stop. Normally I would have to stop at some point in those 500 steps and just breathe for a second.
Hmm.
And that was one of the very first ones that I wrote down. I remember writing down, I was in my car, this was, I don't know, maybe a year ago, and I realized that there were lights down by the pedals. I never knew that there were lights at my gas and brake pedals because my stomach was so big, it blocked my view.
Yeah.
And what a cool little weird celebration or win to celebrate. But I write down every single tiny win that I have. Like after this podcast, I'm going to write this down that I got to talk with you because I'm sure you would have no problem talking to me at 6:50, but there's probably not a whole lot I could teach you at that. But now I can. And so I try to celebrate everything all the time, which is good for your health and fitness and losing weight or growing muscle. It's just good for your mental health as well. You
Oh
go
yeah. I'm
you
sure
go
that
through
it
life
like all of this
thinking
probably
about
trickled into all areas of your life.
it does. I mean, whenever I see someone else get a win, I celebrate their win with them. I tell them, "Hey, did you just see that you did this or this happened?" And when you go through your life seeking wins because you know you got to fill your notebook up, when you're seeking them out, you find a lot more. And
Hmm.
you tend just to live a happier, more fulfilled life when you're just celebrating all the wins. It doesn't mean that it doesn't mean every day is perfect. It doesn't mean that I don't have failures and mistakes. I fail every day. But I don't dwell on those failures. Instead, I look at every failure as just an opportunity to learn something and then pivot to more winning. And celebrating every success, every win is important. And I encourage people to do it regardless of whether you're like me and have weight to lose or not. Even if you are in prime physical form, you should still celebrate your wins. Even if you get the same win every day, you should still celebrate it. And I
Hmm.
encourage people to write them down. There is something that happens in your brain when you physically write down. I'm not even talking a notes app, like pen and paper.
Yeah.
It is like you're imprinting it into your brain, and it's hard to describe unless it's something that you do. And I want everyone to do it. If for no other reason, on your bad day, on that day when you have no motivation, on the day when if you're trying to lose weight and you've been in a stall for a while, or if you're lifting and the numbers, you're not increasing the number of the reps, you're failing constantly. Looking at that notebook of your wins sure does make you feel better, like 1,000 times better.
Oh yeah, absolutely. One thing I have a lot of my clients do is like at the end of every night, like when you're putting your head on the pillow, like think about one thing you're grateful for from the day, or think about like what was the best part of your day, because regardless of how terribly that day went, there's always a best part, no matter how small that might be. And that's like the same thing as celebrating your wins, because the more often you recognize the wins, like you said, the more you're looking for them and the more positive your outlook is for life, which just leads to a better life experience.
Yeah. No, 100%, absolutely. And I just think it's important that people do it. And for mental health, for physical health, if like you said, it really kind of bleeds into all parts of your life, not just the
Mhm.
fitness or physical aspect.
Yeah, and all these things do. So that brings us to number four.
Number four, I think, is the hardest one to actually implement, which is input goals versus output goals.
Hmm.
And particularly if you're trying to lose weight, we have this diet culture that becomes all about a number on the scale. But I can't, nor can you, nor none of us can control a number on a scale, but we're constantly seeking it out.
Yep.
And I've listened to your podcast and I know how your journey started and all this stuff. And a lot of that comes from trying to get to a number on a scale.
The number that I didn't even know what it was, you know?
Exactly. Or how someone appears in the mirror,
Hmm.
or a certain clothing size that fits you. These are all output metrics that you can't control. So I realize I'm not AI or a robot. I can't go into my scale and like program. Really want to be 295 right now. I can't do that. Instead, I can only control my direct actions. So I have never had a goal weight, and I still don't. I and I encourage others to not have a goal weight as well. It's okay to have like an idea of what you'd be happy with. I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Um, but instead, all my goals are about things I control. So my goals are things like how frequently am I going to the gym? How much am I lifting in the gym? Like what am I progressive overload wise? What am I increasing my reps or my weights? How many steps am I getting a day? How much water am I drinking in a day? What's my sleep routine and schedule and hygiene look like? What am I eating? How much am I eating? How many grams of protein am I getting every day? Like all my goals are about all of those things because I have direct control over all of them.
Yes.
And I make sure that the goals are not easy, but achievable.
Hmm.
So, for example, I don't make a goal that I'm going to do a 50-pound bench press because obviously I can do that. So the goals are going to be something I can actually achieve, but I still have to work for. Because you want to make sure that you're celebrating every win. You want to make sure you're accomplishing your goals, but you want to make them worthwhile.
Yeah.
So I find that by making everything about input goals, actions that you directly control, the outputs sort of take care of themselves. And so for me, the output metrics I care about, I do care about the scale. I weigh myself every day. I just don't attach any sort of emotion, negative emotion to the scale.
Hmm.
I don't assign myself worth or value to the number on the scale. And blood work at the doctor, I think that's an output metric.
Oh
The,
yeah.
how my clothes are fitting or how I look in the mirror, those are all output metrics. And those are important and I care about them. I just don't use them to determine my success.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm sure you know this from weighing yourself every day, because I do the same. It's like some days you're up and you have literally no idea why, but you didn't gain 2 pounds of body fat overnight, you know?
No, I mean, so last week I was at I volunteer at this summer camp every year, teaches leadership to young people. And my, when I go to this, I live in a college dorm. I'm at the dorm for a week, eating the cafeteria food,
Oh
and I've
yeah.
done this every year. And I was mentally prepared for what was going to happen because I knew that
Mhm.
while I was going to lift, I was going to be eating. And I should be clear in terms of what I'm eating, I just focus on calories and protein. I don't really care about carbs or fats at all. I tend to be lower carb, but only because I'm trying to get 275 grams of protein a day. So,
Yeah, it's a little hard to eat a lot of
so
carbs when you're doing
by
that.
nature, you're just not getting a lot of carbs. Anyway, but I knew that I was going to be eating cafeteria food for a week, which is going to be all carbs, very little protein because protein's expensive, so they don't make a lot of it. And I knew that my water wasn't going to be as much as it should be, and I knew that I was going to gain a huge amount of weight in inflammation, water weight.
Hmm.
and I knew I was going to gain fat. And I predicted I was going to gain 15 pounds in a week. I ended up gaining about 12 pounds, which I've now lost in just like 3 days.
Inflammation is crazy.
It's crazy. And so at this point, I've gotten to know I track everything, not
Yep.
just weight. I mean, I do my blood pressure every day and my, I mean, if there's data that I can track about my body, I track it.
I love that.
And I now I can almost always predict what's going to happen on the scale. Like when I tell people this, that I could gain 10 pounds tomorrow on the scale if I really wanted to,
Yeah.
and I could do it by eating 2,000 calories. And I know that I can just get an insane amount of carbs and sodium in,
Mm-hmm.
drink 3 gallons of water, and I will be heavy as hell tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And I know if I want to, I can go on a protein sparing modified fast for 3 days, which I occasionally will do. And I know I can go low sodium, low carb for a few days, and I'll flush out all the water I'm holding.
Mm-hmm.
And those are interesting things about my body that I've learned, but it doesn't really matter because it's not a fundamental change to my body. It's
Yep.
all temporary.
Yeah, because you can't control that. Like
Yeah.
you said, just focus on the things that you can control, which is the process. And
Yeah.
I mean, as a coach, like I probably have a conversation about the scale. I want to say almost every day at this point because somebody will step on the scale and even though they know and we've had the conversation, there's just that emotional tie. Like myself as a coach, like I've struggled with my body image for so long, but like I'll step on the scale some days and be like, I want to kind of smash this scale. It's just like an emotional thing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think, and I still celebrate like a new
Oh
ultra
yeah.
or whatever. Like, it's still okay to do that. But when I started working out with my current trainer, I think the only time I ever got like rude with him or difficult, I think I'm a hard person to train. I push back a lot. I'm very kind of bullheaded, but he was talking about the scale at first because when I first started lifting with him, my weight loss pretty much stopped because I was lifting. And he wanted to talk about the scale, and I remember getting pretty upset about it and telling him, I feel so guilty now. I remember saying to him like something along the lines of like, I'm here and I want you to talk to you about things I'm doing in the gym. I'm not talking to you about how much I weigh. And I did not want to talk about it because I'm so adverse to using the scale as a way to measure anything in terms of like if it's successful or not. Ultimately, the scale is the best measure if you're succeeding at losing weight or not. I get that. But over time, I'm more open to talking about it than I was at first.
Yeah.
But I think for coaches or trainers out there that are listening to this, try not to fall into that trap that your clients will lay for you, which is it's all about the scale. And I get it. If you're a trainer, you want to see that number go down because it's proving to your client that they're getting results. And that's how you keep clients by getting results.
Mhm.
And so I get why you want to talk about it, but the mindset which we're talking about is so much more important. And I really wish coaches would talk more about mindset. That's why I've really enjoyed listening to your podcast and looking at your Instagram page because you are clearly mindset. Like that is your focus. And I wish all coaches were like that.
I feel like it's literally the base because like you can go to ChatGPT and look up like nutrition and training programs, but if you're not in the right mindset to actually do it, you're not going to do it.
Absolutely. And people think that something like Chat GPT is going to be the end for
Oh
coaches.
yeah. I
And
love when people say that. I'm just like, okay, continue to watch.
the thing is, it will be the end for coaches that just do programming and nothing else.
Truth.
Like that'll be the end of the career of those coaches. But if you're a coach that programming is just a part of what you do, but your main focus is on the mental aspects, the mindset stuff, the inspiration stuff, you are going to be more important than ever in the
Hmm.
Chat GPT world. So I hope that coaches who aren't doing that today pivot to it. I think they'll find way more success.
I think so as well. But let's talk about what's next for you. Like what is I know you're right now your training kind of looks like 4 days a week. It always has.
Yeah.
How has your nutrition kind of evolved around the years?
I have kept the exact same nutrition the entire time. So I I don't think of something as when it comes to diet as like diet and maintenance. Um, Everything I do this entire time, literally everything, I will only do it if I can do it forever. I don't do anything that is temporary to get me to the next step.
I love that you said that.
And so it hasn't mattered when I was 600 pounds or just over 300 now. I eat 2,500 calories a day, and I do 250 to 300 grams of protein. So I do that every day. In terms of, I do real food, chicken, ground beef, eggs. I learned that eggs and egg whites and cottage cheese blended together and made as scrambled eggs is like the protein bomb of all
It
protein.
really is. And if you want to even throw some like ground beef in there from last night, like make it
I
even
never
more.
thought about that. I'm gonna start doing
hmm
that. I'm
That's
like,
what my husband does every morning. He takes ground beef from last night, puts it in his eggs, and it's like more protein.
all right, you just changed my life. I'm
'Cause
so
it's
glad
so
we
easy. You're already having it at night. Just put a
talked.
couple in the Tupperware for the
Oh, what
next
a good
day.
idea. So I do that and I supplement with like, protein, I like protein shakes and powders and all that and some bars. But I've been doing that the entire time, knowing that like over time my calorie deficit would eventually get lower.
Yeah.
And so I'll probably end up increasing. You know what I'm really excited about? You say what's next for me? So I probably need to lose another 25 to 40 pounds. I'm gonna have skin removal surgery near the end of the year.
Exciting.
I have so much skin. People say I look so good because they generally only see me from the chest up. They don't see my midsection, which you can see a little bit on my pump. I just have a lot of skin. People are still surprised that I weigh like 315 now. They think I weigh a lot less than that. But I just have so much skin on my stomach, my chest, my thighs. I can't believe how small my thighs have gotten. My arms, my neck, and I really need to have plastic surgery, especially around my stomach and my thighs, because
hmm
it's getting in the way of my not mobility, but ability to like lift weights and walk.
Yeah.
So I'll do that. But what I'm really excited for is I have using DEXA scans and InBody, I've added muscle, especially over the last 6 months. And I'm in a 2,500 a day calorie deficit.
I was gonna say 2,500 calories a day for you is for
Yeah.
somebody your size, that's small. Or that's a
Especially
yeah.
considering my physical activity. And I've even have had it tested at the doctor where you breathe into the calorimeter or whatever it's called. And
Yeah,
I'm at about so my resting metabolic rate's 3,900 a day.
that's crazy.
And so throwing in all my activities, I'm sure I'm at 5,000.
Oh yeah.
But I'm not I'm not getting weaker at all. I've definitely like plateaued on how much I can lift. So what I'm extremely excited about, and this is a year away for me, I think, but getting to whatever stable weight I need to be, getting rid of all the skin, being 250, 275 at the end of all of this, and then I can start seeing what happens when I go into a calorie surplus.
That's gonna be wild.
I
Because
am,
if you're putting on muscle in this big of a deficit, you have the genetics to put on good muscle then.
yeah. So if I'm a year from now, if I'm 47, 48 years old, with like right now I'm at 24% body fat, which seems like a lot, but I was at like 65%
Definitely
body.
not a lot when you think about where you've been, you know?
Yeah. So I'm like a 24% body fat at this size. And probably it's maybe a little bit higher than that, but that's what the doctor said. Um, I'm I'm just pumped to see if I don't have the skin in my way and I'm at a little calorie surplus and all this protein is going to build to really build muscle as opposed to just maintain it.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited about that. So that's at least what's next for me on the physical side. And then the other stuff is just, I don't really know. I was never going to talk about any of this stuff because I was very ashamed and embarrassed to be my size. And
Mhm.
I want to give a message to people out there that if you are obese or if you know someone that is or love someone who is, um, everyone deserves love and respect. Everyone deserves empathy. We all deserve compassion, regardless of our size. And it can be very easy to judge people who are very big. And if that's you, it's easy to judge yourself when you're that size. But you have to give love and respect to people because everyone's just doing the best they can with whatever knowledge and tools they have. And, um, but you can also live a significantly better life. Uh, I So I think what's next for me is I was never going to talk about this, but the more I talk about it, the more I realize that my story is resonating with others in ways that I never anticipated,
Yeah.
both about my mindset shift and just really feeling like I gained my life back. That my life, which was going to end soon, is now going to hopefully be a much longer time, but my quality of life is so much better. And so I'm hopeful that I can maybe be a messenger to people who are not happy with where they are health-wise, that if you just get the right help, whatever that is for you, everyone's different. I needed medication, but not everyone does. But get the help, be open to asking for help, then go and get it. And that's particularly true. I want that message to resonate with men specifically, because if you often go to a gym, if you go on any online forums, particularly in this GLP-1 space, it's probably 70 or 80% women. And I
Yeah.
think it's because women are generally willing to be more honest with themselves about the need to get healthier.
They're just willing to share their emotions, I think, a little bit more
Oh,
than men. Like,
absolutely. Yeah.
if men are struggling, they usually don't share it. They just kind of
Yeah.
struggle by themselves, you know?
And I think, yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of guys are also too much pride to ask for help.
Yep.
And I'm trying to demonstrate for others that if you just acknowledge that you don't know everything and that you can get help, whether that be from a coach or a doctor or whatever, that it really can open the world for you. So I don't know what that means for the future for me, but I really enjoy doing stuff like this. I love, talking to you has been really great. I online, I can't believe I've gotten into the social media stuff like on TikTok. Um,
Yeah. I mean, I didn't even have a TikTok until yesterday.
really? And so I'm posting to TikTok constantly. And the reason I do, and here's why I use TikTok specifically, in case any of
Yeah.
this, is Instagram is, I mean, everyone's on Instagram, as am I. That is often people who know what they're doing, who are maybe relatively healthy, and that's the accounts that they follow. The Instagram algorithm doesn't really feed you as well as the TikTok algorithm does.
That's what I've been told, which
Yeah.
is why I started one.
Yeah, and so there are many, many people who have obesity or who are overweight, who are getting help, either medication or otherwise, and they're on TikTok and they have no clue what to do. They've never stepped foot in a gym. Their doctor didn't give them any advice. And now they're on TikTok scrolling. And I realize that there are people out there who are not going to get education any other way. So that's why I've started posting online because I'm hopeful that someone finds my message, which is about mindset, as opposed to someone else's message, which is maybe just about extremely restrictive diets. And I am terrified for people who are losing weight without doing resistance training. I'm scared for them.
Yeah.
I want people to do it. So I'm hopeful that if someone, and I get it, I have a hook. I was 650 pounds. I'll
It's
have
a
to,
good hook.
it's a hook. I just have to say I was 650 pounds and it stops people in their tracks because most people are like, holy shit, can a human being get that size, you know?
Hmm.
And if I grab them for a few seconds and say, and you can, and I lost it using weightlifting, that might put a little seed in their head or something.
I think the biggest thing is like that caught me, like Mind Pump used your hook real well. They were like, man loses 300 pounds with no cardio. I was like, oh shit, I gotta listen to this. And then I realized it was you from the question. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, cool. This
Yeah.
is dope.
Yeah, it's sort of funny when I saw that headline because I didn't know it was going to be. I didn't even know they didn't even tell me when it was going to come out. I got a message
Yeah.
the
You're just
night.
like, oh, there it is.
Yeah, and they didn't say anything about it, and so that I lost 300 pounds with no cardio was sort of fun because it's true. I'm proud team no cardio. Um, and I know that you do cardio. Well, you're a CrossFitter. Like I can, I'm not that brave yet to get into CrossFit, but
Yeah, I'm training to be
yeah,
an athlete, so it's a little different. And that's
yeah,
when people like to compare. They're like, oh, well, I don't work out as much as you. And I'm like, I'm literally trained. This is like my job right now. So don't compare,
yeah,
you
no,
know?
exactly, it's exactly right. But there are many people who think that the way you lose weight is just to spend 3 hours in a gym moving between the rowing machine and the elliptical and the
Hmm.
treadmill and the bike. And I joke that like I guess I broke a sweat yesterday because it was 90 degrees and I was walking, but I don't break a sweat all that often unless I'm doing a deadlift that is brutal.
Yeah.
But it, I can show you can do these things without following what this diet culture tells you to do to lose weight.
Yeah, like I've seen so many things where it's like, oh, well, if you're not sore after your workout, then it was a bad workout, or like
Oh yeah.
if you're not dying, like crippled walking out of the gym, bad workout, if you're not drenched in sweat. And I'm like, literally, those things don't indicate anything. I would say, like, if somebody's crippled walking out of the gym, or if they're sore that they can't even sit on the toilet the next day, that they failed because they didn't recover from their workout and they did too much.
Exactly right. They overtrained, and overtraining is worse than undertraining lots of times
Oh
because
yeah.
it can cause, even over the last 3 years, I've occasionally overtrained and gotten minor injuries. It's all ego. It's all ego lifting that causes it.
Oh, absolutely every time.
And even now I do it. Like I never get tweaks with when I'm with my trainer, but I go in on a Saturday. I'm like, I can up the. I love triceps because when you're 600 pounds, you have great triceps because you're constantly pushing yourself up out of chairs.
When you said that on the mind pump, I was like, oh, I never thought about that.
So, I like it's like there are two things I can do: a leg press and tricep like ex push down or whatever they're called, extensions. That I just know it's the highest in the gym, and so that's like my ego like forces me to, I can do like 180 or 190 on triceps, and it's like, and then it's like, oh, that wasn't great. I've injured myself, but uh, I uh, I think that being responsible in the gym and just getting to the gym is really important for people. And that's my main message. One, it's you have to start with mindset. And two, you have to do resistance training.
hmm So my last question would be what, and you kind of already touched on it a little bit, but like if somebody was listening to this and they are in a place like maybe they're 650 pounds and they're afraid to start or they keep overthinking it, what would you say to that person?
Um, I'm gonna give what I'd say to them is, and I've said this, I'm gonna give some tough love,
I love this.
which is that you're going to die way earlier than you want to. But there is something worse than death, which is you are going to be close to immobile, and it's going to get worse every single year. I I was always very big. It wasn't until I got to my mid to late 30s that it all caught up with me. And I thought that I could get away with it for a long time. And once it does catch up with you, it's really hard to fix. And so if you have significant amount of weight to lose, I'm going to say 100 pounds or more, you have to start, you have to get started immediately and do not wait for tomorrow. Like right now, if you are listening to this and you know that you have a lot of weight to lose, get up and go for a walk and listen to the episode before or after this while you're walking.
hmm
Like you have to start with something. Um, and something I said on Mind Pump that I'll be honest, I had never thought of it before I spoke the words out loud in that interview in that moment. And um, I was realizing it as I was saying it, but now it's a message I want to deliver to everyone who needs to lose a lot of weight is you think that the destination is at the end. You think that all the work you have to do gets to you to some destination where you're going to be happy or healthy or it's a better life for you. And I had this moment of realization during that recording, which is all the work that I've been doing, this process to get happy and healthy and to get to a good life, uh, like that's the good life. The good life is the one where you can get up and move however you want, where
hmm
you're not controlled by food, where you are showing up for yourself in the gym and lifting some weight. That is a better life. And that better life doesn't need to be in 2 or 3 or 5 years. That better life can be next week or next month. But you're only going to get that better life if you get started right now. So don't wait. Don't wait for the next Monday or the first of the month. You can do something today. So make that first promise to yourself and keep it. And if you do, you're going to find that all the other promises are a lot easier to keep.
Yeah, that's the beauty of life. We have the opportunity to change right now if we want to.
Yep. And I really encourage people to do it and to not be afraid to ask for help along the way.
Amazing. Well, Jamie, this has been an absolutely incredible conversation. Thank you again for taking the time out of your life to come on and talk to us.
Thank you so much for having me here. I consider me a listener for life for the podcast, and I have a lot to learn from you. So thanks for all the work you're doing.
Of course. Well, I'll put all of Jamie's information so you can follow him on Instagram and TikTok down below and continue learning from him. But other than that, go out and make today amazing.